Welcome to Season 2 of Digging Deeper Ag Chats with Al, the podcast that brings you timely and practical stories straight from the paddock. From sowing to shearing, fire to flood, and everything in between. We're here when it matters most. Each episode taps into real experiences, expert voices, and grounded advice that helps you stay ahead on farm. I'm Alister from the Gippsland Ag Group, a grassroots farmer-led network in Gippsland, focusing on soil, grain and fodder, pasture and livestock. We're here to support producers in building resilient and profitable enterprises across our region. So let's dig in. Welcome everyone to Digging Deeper, back for another episode. Had a bit of a tricky season starting to unfold here in East Gippsland, Central Gippsland. And so brought the big guns in. Brad Obst.
I don't know about that.
How you going, Brad?
Yeah, good, thanks, Alister. Good, great to be here.
No, thanks very much for coming in. There's been a few requests to get you on because you're very experienced in the industry, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on a whole range of things, but particularly the livestock side of things. So we'll make a start. Firstly, where did you grow up? Are you local?
No, I grew up actually in Melbourne, in a little town called Dingley, which was surrounded by market gardens, and my grandparents were vegetable growers down there, and my mother married a stock agent, and that's how but grew up there, and never left there till I was in my early 20s.
Right, so your old man was a stock agent then, is that?
Yeah, Dad was an agent. He worked through Trafalgar and Warrigal. He actually started in Wodonga, and then took a shift to Dandenong, back in the 1960s.
What was your journey like into becoming a stock agent then, Brad?
It was an interesting one because I was the eldest son, so pretty much from the time I could walk, in the back of the car with Dad on Sundays, and out to farms, not so much helping him, but he would be getting stock ready for the markets in Dandenong on Monday, and pretty much grew up around stock and the likes of that, and then used to help Dad in the sale yards in Dandenong, and along those. Yeah.
So how long would you actually say you've been involved in the industry? You count those early years as being part of the industry, or?
Oh, I actually started in my first role. Surprising enough, Dad wouldn't give me a job. Dad's claim was that he couldn't tell me anything, so he shipped me off to work for one of his mates in an opposition company because he said, you might listen to him because you won't listen to me. So I actually started with Alex Scott's when I was 16 years old.
Right, so Alex Scott, they still operate?
Yeah,
fairly locally, don't they?
Yeah. Alex Scott's. I think they're coming up to their 140th anniversary in the coming months.
Right.
So, very, very good company. Yeah, great company. So.
Yep. Now, do you want to mention actually who you work for currently, Brad?
Yeah, I work.
People might know, but a lot of people won't that's listening, I guess.
Nutrient Ag Solutions. We here in Bairnsdale, we operate a franchise model under the Nutrient Ag Solutions banner, and we have representation from sort of Hayfield through to Orbost and up to Dargo and Omeo and the likes of that. So but we operate under the Nutrient banner, and very proud to, I might say. Yeah,
and so formerly that was Landmark.
Well, I've had many things over the years. I left Alex Scott's to join Gippsland and Northern in Traralgon, and then Dalgetty's bought Gippsland and Northern, and then the ANZ Bank owned Dalgetty's for a while, and then Wesfarmers bought it from there, and then the Wheat Board bought it from there, and so we've had many owners over the years, but I've got to say that the team from Nutrient, they're outstanding. They're very good. So.
Yeah, well, that might lead us on to the next question, because I did a little bit of digging around on you, and apparently you went for a bit of a trip. Was that with Nutrient over to the States?
Yeah, it was back in the Landmark days, and we had a managing director, Tommy, who was an American. He was sent out by the parent company, and what they used to do was run a livestock tour to America every year. I think it was about 10 or 12 days or 14 days we were over there for, and it was about 10 people from right around Australia and people that we'd never met. It was a really good trip. We seen some interesting stuff. And,
what was the purpose of that trip from those guys sending you over there?
Oh, look, I think it was an educational tour. There was part and parcel of it. There's probably no dodging around. It's probably a bit of reward
Bit of a junket is what you're trying to say, is it?
Yeah, I'd like to say reward for performance, but they might disagree. But no, it was basically an educational tour, and I think in the early days of it, they were really wanting us to get an understanding of what their business was like in America. So they don't do any livestock over there, but they showed us a lot of their agronomy side of it, which they're huge, and they showed us a lot of that. But we went to a lot of feedlots, abattoirs, studs, the likes of that, and
yeah. So in America, are there some similarities to how we operate over here with the whole chain, or is there some major differences? What do you notice?
Oh, look, they just don't get the concept of grass feeding of cattle. Everything is fed. We went to one particular stud, a very large stud, and those bulls from about the time that they were 2 or 3 months old, they were locked in pens, and everything's concentrated. And like people might run some fairly substantial numbers of livestock, but 85% of their place was growing fodder to feed them, and as opposed to we're a little bit the opposite. We've sort of got all our cattle out there, and when you spoke to the meat processors, I said, "Do you do many grass-fed cattle?" And they just said, "Well, why would you do that?" But as proven, Australia's grown a great grass-fed market for our beef into America, so it's something in it. But yeah, but probably the one thing that really stuck in my mind while we were over there and visiting different farms and the likes of that was the succession. The American farmers, when mum and dad get to the stage where they want to retire, they're actually able to step aside and enjoy a retirement financially without having to burden the next generation with debt to come onto the farm. I think that was the thing where I think pretty much here in Australia, we're sort of locked in for mum and dad to have a proper retirement. Somebody's got to assume a debt to fund that retirement, where the Americans seem to have made their money along the journey to be able to do that. And that really stuck in my mind, how different it was, the succession over there to here.
Yeah. Do you know why that's the case? Is it because they're talking about it from early days and they're making a plan, or...?
I think it's probably got a lot to do with government, taxation, subsidies. I think they probably enjoy a little bit more government support than what our farmers do along the way. And the agricultural voice in America is very, very strong. And it's the politicians, they sit up and take notice of that over there, and where it's sort of here. Well, as day goes by, it's proving not to be the case. But I think it's probably more to do with their system and that tax breaks and subsidies that they get along the way that helps them through that.
Sounds like you might have a career in politics after you hang up the auctioneer's hat, maybe, Brad.
Wouldn't take the pay drop.
Right, let's talk a bit about the reason why you actually called on here. Is that East Gippsland, Central Gippsland and some other areas, all of a sudden for us here in East Gippsland specifically, looking like a really good spring coming out of late winter, and the taps just turned off and the winds have started to blow. The season's changed significantly. Central Gippsland, they've been battling for a long time now without good-looking spring. What are some of the tougher times that you can remember from your time in the game?
I reckon probably one of the toughest times I've seen was that drought in the late 90s. I thought that was horrific. I know the Millennium Drought and the likes, that was bad, but that one back in sort of I think it broke in 1998, but that late 90s one, that was soul destroying for a lot of people. That there was, I've seen whole herds go down the road and whole herds get slaughtered, and it was a really, really tough time. I think for everybody, I think everybody in the agricultural thing struggled through that. Yeah, I don't think it was necessarily isolated to just the producers. I think truck drivers, I know us as agents, it was certainly very testing and very trying, but everyone came out of it the other end, and which was good. So, but that was a very trying time. It didn't matter where you looked. There was no markets. Cattle were making nothing. Sheep were making nothing. Agistment was extremely hard to come by, and when you did, it was expensive. And some good lessons learned out of that one too. So.
Yeah. So, talking currently, how would you describe the situation right now?
I think here in East Gippsland, we're certainly on a knife edge. I wouldn't write the season off just yet. A good shower of rain will turn things around for us pretty quickly, and I think that happened last year. We got some good rains late October and into November, and I don't think we're sort of, I don't think we're sort of a write-off yet, but it could quickly develop into that, and so it's evidenced by how quickly the season has deteriorated in recent times. But with some sort of moisture relief in the near future, we'd be okay. Yeah.
So you travel much around the state, do you, with your work?
Oh, intermittently.
I suppose you'll be talking
not
to other
regularly.
agents.
Yeah, we talk to. Yeah.
So Victoria generally, how are we shaping up, do you think?
I think South Gippsland's off and running. Talking to people down there in recent times, they're quite happy and content with their grass, with their pasture growth and the likes of that. A few of them expressed concerns about surface water and not having enough water, but that's a South Gippsland thing. They never plan long term for water, never have. They don't seem to be able to handle that. Into I was talking to a fellow the other day, the coastal areas along the western Victoria and the likes, that are quite good. They've had some pretty good rains. Interesting, I was interstate the other day in South Australia and went for a drive out west of Adelaide towards Gawler and Balaclava and Burra and out through that area, and I thought their crops looked magnificent. Not that I'm a crop specialist, but they were up and they were healthy and they looked really good. I don't know if they're supposed to be higher, but they looked really good. And yes, the Southern Riverina desperately wants a rain, needs it. Northern New South Wales still chuffing along okay, but it's coming towards the end of their time, so there's starting to be some significant stock movements out of up there. So yeah.
Okay, so you said we're on a nice edge here in East Gippsland. Central Gippsland's much the same, possibly in a worse. They've had a pretty tough autumn and winter, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I think if you get into around that, Warrigal, Traralgon, it actually looks okay, but I'd have some concerns about their moisture levels in their soils. It could be a pretty short time for them. But yeah, they're certainly probably pasture-wise might be a little bit better than us, but might not have the soil moisture that we've got. Yeah,
well, they got they got close to an inch actually over that last rain event down through there, so hopefully they get some more, because I think that what you said with that tough drought that you went through back in the 90s, there was nothing anywhere, whereas there's a few options possibly for us if we're looking for agistment or looking to offload some stock. So now your area of specialty, moving stock, producers, are they still holding stock, or are you starting to see some early offloads, and what happens in the next fortnight if we stay dry and windy?
I believe what we're sort of seeing is that I've been saying it for a while. I think East Gippsland is pretty heavily stocked at the moment. I think potentially around the area that East Gippsland's probably running at 110 to 120% stocking rate. So there's plenty of surplus stock out there. I don't necessarily it's been early sell-offs. There's been some opportunistic sell-offs with the prices that we've seen in recent times. There's been some opportunistic sell-offs. Don't know they're necessarily season-wise, but we're starting to see surplus stock come forward. Not necessarily early, but cows, excess heifers. They're starting to see that come forward. But calves and the likes of that, well, no, I don't think we are seeing that. We're sort of seeing a normal sell-off, but in greater numbers.
Rightio. So what happens if the next month is dry and we don't get that late October, early November rain? What are you expecting to see? Or when you're talking to your producers, trying to give them some advice, and I know we are recording this obviously, but no one's going to hold you to it, but what sort of advice would you be talking to your producers about if they're trying to make decisions?
Look, I've actually had a couple of conversations with some people in recent times and about selling stock, and one person said, I valued their stock, and they said, well, we'd like to get more money for them, so we might feed them. And I said, well, I'd be a little bit hesitant to actually add a cost onto the top of the livestock that you've got now, because if you look at it over the years, generally when you get to this time of year, the graphs on prices are generally heading downwards. So we're seeing probably...
How long does that go until, Brad? Is it in historical
from a
trends?
Those historical trends, like they'll sort of start a gradual slide through to probably January. Then we'll start to see it change around a little bit. But it is, it's been happening every year for a long, long time. So if you were to add a cost onto your livestock, it'd be reasonable to expect that in a period of time, you could be selling those stock. Then they might be better than what you've got now, but the net result might not be any better than what you could get for them now. And you're not forking the dollars out to pay them, and you're not having to worry about them. It's gone, mate. It's money's in the bank.
Cash them in. So let's talk about some early weaning. Is that another lever they can do and sell some of the old cows off and keep the calves?
I think it's a great lever to pull myself, because what you can do from there is if you're worried about where the season's going, you can get the calves off, and let's face it, that's your future income. You can get the calves off the cows. You can look after the calves and keep them going along. But importantly, you can get rid of your excess cows, or your empty cows, your bad-footed cows, your bad-eyed cows, your bad-performing cows. You can get rid of that excess stock, and again, just simplify it down. So, yeah.
Yep. Now I'm more of a sheep person than a cow person. How early is early weaning for you?
I've seen it over the years. I've seen it as early as 2 and 3 months.
Yeah.
In some times, but I sort of think probably that sort of 4 to 6 months is probably is early. Anywhere 6 to 8, I'd say, is probably there, and the normal's probably 9 or 10. But
yeah, so you can push them pretty hard then, those young calves, if need be.
You can, yes, yep.
Okay, you mentioned in there preg testing and moving on empty cows. What else are you looking for? What other options have you got when you're culling out a herd? A forced cull, what other sort of things are they looking to get rid of?
Well, I mean, it's just those, and I mentioned it before, I think East Gippsland is running quite heavily stocked at the moment, so it's identifying where your stocking rate should be, and perhaps trying to get it back to that. And I know a lot of people talk in DSCs and dry sheep equivalents, and perhaps it's getting back to a more conservative side of that in preparation for what might be a bad season. But if the season turns around and comes good, well, you're still in a good position to take advantage of it, but you're also well prepared for the thing. So, it might be the older portion of your cows. Keep your young stock, your older cows. We've seen a client in recent times. He sold off a significant number of his older cows in preparation. He thinks it's going to be dry, but if it turns around, he's in a great spot. He's still got all his young cattle. He's got all his younger herd.
Yep. Now, we often have, or once a month, we have your competition in a pink shirt in here.
Yep.
And he loves to make predictions.
Yep.
What are you like on the prediction front, Brad? Are you happy to make one?
Depends what it is.
Right, I'll ask a question. You can choose to ignore me if you like. But going forward, if we're going to hang on to a class of stock that might make us money in sort of 3 or 4 months' time, what is it?
What's going to make you money in future? I think cows.
Yeah.
Yep.
In older cows?
Yep. They can, you can run a, and I'm not necessarily saying from a breeding point of view, but if you're talking about an opportunity, I think to go and buy a light cow at the moment and fatten her, like our market's very, very strong into America, and they've got some, their beef inventory is so low. That's a sustainable market, so I think that looks pretty good. I think that the the bottom, the smaller end of the weaner steer market, I think, it's trading at a level where I think it would leave very little in it for the next person in the short term. I think in the long term it could be good, but I think in the short term,
Well, you heard it here first on Digging Deeper. We'll leave this one in because I like that prediction. But it's interesting you say that because Ben Young from Chiltern Park Mow, he said a very similar thing. Is those cows are the only thing that appreciate with age. As they get bigger and heavier, you can always make some money out of them at the end of their life, which, unlike sheep, for instance, ewes often drop significantly as they get older. So,
well, it's at the end of the day in livestock, you only trade in weight by cents a kilo. Cows are probably one thing at the moment where you've got the opportunity to purchase them at a lesser cents per kilo than you're going to sell them at. So I don't know that buying a weaner steer for $6.50 a kilo and then selling into a feedlot for $5.40 is good maths, but certainly buying a cow for $3.50 or $60, where you see the top end of the market at $4, I think that presents an opportunity.
Yeah, it's a bit of a safer gamble sometimes. We have educated gambles in this game sometimes. Now, I'm not sure what's your intel on the sheep market. Does Billy do most of your sheep job? Does he, or are you still keep abreast of it?
Billy's the face of our sheep job, I suppose. He looks after the market in a Bairnsdale. He does a great job in there. I think the sheep job looks pretty solid, to be honest with you. I think moving forward, again, our sheep numbers are low. Our export demand for the mutton is very, very good. So I can't see a lot of downside to the sheep job in general. Reports of very, very poor conception and lambing rates through Western Victoria will probably keep the lamb job pretty solid as well. So I think that's almost good. And I have heard reports and been reminded a couple of times the wool market's at a high at the moment, and so
10 weeks in a row. Someone told me the other day.
So the wool boys are up and about.
It did start. It was a fairly low base that they're starting from, though.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's an improvement. It's an improvement.
So, talking to your producers, your clients right now, what's the number one message you're trying to pass on to those guys?
What I sort of see with people is the breeder. I think that the breeder's got to be very, very mindful of the numbers that they run, so they don't coming into, and let's say the season does deteriorate, that they don't run into a situation where they're doing it that hard that they're affecting the calf, which is going to be next year's income. I think they've got to make some decisions there, and if it means to lighten off to think like that, you can always breed more cows. The fellas that buy cattle and trade cattle, the message I'm trying to tell people at the moment is, yep, the prices are fantastic. You can, there's cattle out there that would make double what you would have paid for them back in the autumn. They would make double that now. But what's your next move? You can turn around and double your money, but you're going to invest a significant amount of that profit back into your next one and not have as big a beast in your paddock. So capitalise on what you got and capitalise on the feed that we've got now and try and turn that article into a heavier beast, and hopefully the situation will be a little bit better to trade from down the track.
You obviously talk a lot to your clients, and some of those decisions would be made out of emotionally charged decisions when people are deciding to sell or lighten off or whatever. How do you sort of handle that emotional side of your clients when you're trying to give them advice and you can see they're thinking out of emotions rather than thinking out what's best for the operation?
It's very hard. I mean, when you see the emotions starting to come into the decision making, I think our role as agents, and it doesn't matter what colour shirt you wear, I don't think it's our role to make the decision, but it's our role to provide the information and the facts to help that person make a decision and listen to what they're saying. Provide the information, listen to what they're coming back. and hopefully they make the right decision. But it's not our decision to make; it's our decision to fully inform. That's our role. It's extremely hard when emotion comes into it, because it's often not. I don't quite know the right word, but it's actually it's not a good basis to make the decision off, because it gets tied up in the wrong reasons.
Yeah. Now, how, off the top of your head, do you know who your oldest client would be?
Here in East Gippsland, there's a great cohort of clients that were Dalgety customers when I took over from Phil Rourke. But going further back, when I was working for Gippsland and Northern in Traralgon, Gippsland and Northern in Orbost used to come under the Traralgon brand. So there's people in Orbost which I can go back to dealing with them far back or having contact with them as an agent back to 1986, when I first started with Gippsland and Northern. But there's quite a few clients here that's still, I enjoy doing their business now from when I started here in 1992.
Yeah, so if we go back to the 86, that's nearly 40 odd years you've been working alongside these guys, and I think that actually puts you in a really good place to understand who they are as people and to be able to give them the advice when they're going through those emotional times. So
we've seen it come and we've seen it go. One interesting one though is that you asked about length of clients. So I've got a client who's actually not in this area. He's down on they're based down on the swamp at Cooyurup, and this client's father dealt with my father up until my father passed away, and then I've dealt with his father until he passed away, and we still do business there. And I think the family connection goes back nearly 60 years that the two families been doing business together. So,
I've got a similar story with our shearer, Dennis Tice, a local. Hi to Dennis if you're listening. But I think one of his first sheds was my grandfather's shed way back in the day, and sure every year after that. And we took him on when we took over, and we actually got out of Merinos the year that we thought he was getting out of shearing as well, but he kicked on for another couple of years actually. So it's actually nice to be able to be part of someone's career like that. So. And
it's quite. I find it really good because those people, they become more than clients. You know, they've certainly become more than clients, and you feel for them in hard times, and that can be tough. But
all right, next question: what are some of the mistakes that people do start making when they're faced with seasonal decisions like we're in the middle of now?
I actually think the movement or the selling of stock or that sort of thing is part of it. There's some decisions that get made there, but I actually think a lot of the time people don't actually fully analyse when they decide they're going to feed their stock. It's going to be dry, but I'm going to feed them through. I'm going to do this. I don't know that people. There's certainly people out there that do, I know that, but there's a lot of people don't actually fully cost it out. Go, well, what is it going to cost me to feed those stock, and what's going to be the end result? Am I going to recoup that money, or is it just going to be dead money? So that's where I sort of think sometimes can be the start of a bad decision. It can be the start of a good one, don't get me wrong, but that can be when they're haven't fully analysed the situation. Like, we can't control the weather, we know that, but we can control what we do about it.
Yeah. So if we're going into a feeding program, you'd say sit down and work out all the costs associated.
For sure.
And then come back and go, what can I get now? And I think the one thing that people never put a dollar value on is stress.
And their time.
Yeah, and the time, because there's a lot of time involved when you start feeding, and then also stress when they're not doing the things that they should be doing, or you've got a cook animal all of a sudden. Yeah. So I think that it's a good advice.
I think the stress side of it, you can't measure that. And, the torment and the anguish that people put themselves through sometimes, whether it be on the back end of or during a drought or the back end of a bushfire or something like that, you're right, you can't put a value on it, but you can certainly see the toll of it down the track.
The other thing that you don't notice as in those stressful situations, it sneaks up slowly on you. And then all of a sudden you get to a stage where you're just about broken and how did I get this much stress heaped on me, sort of thing. But it does creep up slowly when you're in those situations. So
yeah, and in those situations, I urge people to talk about it. Society's a lot different to what it was back 25, 30 years ago. I mean, it wasn't the done thing to talk about your problems. We can now. People can talk about their problems, and there's people out there that will listen, and there's people out there that want to listen. And a fellow only said to me the other day, he said, a problem shared is a problem halved. And, I think it was very true. And sometimes you get to places and I've seen the stress and the anguish boil over, and it's not good. But I'm glad that people are able to let it go now and not be ashamed of it. So I think people, if you're doing it hard, talk, get the information and talk. So.
Yeah, we get a lot of intelligent people on this podcast, and one of the common things is spending time off farm as well. And because often that actually is when you start talking around a fire pit with a beer or something like that. And exactly what you said, a problem shared is a problem halved, and sometimes just listening is enough of support to someone too. So,
and you know what? Sometimes you find out you're not the only one. That there's other people going through the same thing, similar thing, and that feeling of isolation compounds when you're stuck on the farm on your own. It you start to feel, well, am I the only one? But get out and talk about it. So
yep. All right, coming to the end of the podcast, but I just want to ask, get a lot of young listeners or new farmers on this podcast, and if you were just to focus on the young or newer farmers, what would be 3 top takeaways heading into a possible dry summer? What 3 pieces of advice would you want to give them?
Young farmers with families, make sure you spend some time with your kids. Your kids are a great release. They don't know that the cows need to be fed. They don't know that, so they give you a bit of relief on it. That side of things. Plan for the worst and enjoy the upside when the worst doesn't happen. I really think that's the thing. If you plan for the best, you possibly set yourself up for disappointment time after time after time. But if you plan for the worst, there's going to be more upsides than there is to downsides, and that's one thing I would take away or would recommend to young people is spend time with your family and plan for the worst but enjoy the upside.
Yeah, nice one. Now, what about, would that advice change to if you're talking to your whole client list?
No. It's right across the board. The older ones have grandkids. Spend time with them. That's and family, and get around family, get around friends. But no, my advice wouldn't change with the age group.
Oh, very good. I really appreciate you coming in, Brad.
No, thank you for the opportunity.
I hope to hear from you again at some stage, and enjoy hopefully a less windy week.
Okay. Yes, well, hopefully in the near future we enjoy a wet week with it. So.
It'll be good. Very good. All right, bye for now. A big thank you for tuning in today. And remember, if you have a question about today's episode or a topic you'd like us to cover, reach out to one of our many platforms and join the conversation. We're here because of your passion and commitment to agriculture. Together, we can build a stronger farming future.
This podcast is made possible by the Future Drought Fund Regional Drought Resilience Planning Program, co-funded by the Victorian and Australian governments.